Views expressed by Casters Guild members are only the opinions of that member, and that could change from day to day. Guild members may use mature language, but that in no way means they are mature. Listener discretion is advised.
Wake up, Samurai. Your fixer's on the line, and as long as your deck head is in, there's some serious eddies to be made. And you could use the scratch, because you're in serious debt to the Ripper Doc after that last cyberware upgrade. But this ain't no braid dance, Gato. This is the big leagues. And that's the spell we're casting tonight on Casters Guild. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's episode of Casters Guild. I am your guild master and resident Ripper Doc, Rick Perry.
And I am your guild master, Baron Goganger Kane.
And joining us for the first time tonight is a new guild member. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, I am the new guild member, Jason Maxwell, and I am the resident troll.
You Shadowrun that.
I went Shadowrun on that one.
Well, technically, as soon as Rick said, and that's the spell we're casting, we went straight to Shadowrun.
Yeah. So, in case it's not obvious from that string of jargon I just threw at you, tonight we're talking about Cyberpunk.
Jargon is 75% Cyberpunk. That's all. That's 75% of Cyberpunk is the jargon. So.
Oh, well, then I'm in. I've already got it down.
You're right in there, man. You're right in there.
So, what was your first exposure to Cyberpunk?
Well, I know for me, mine was the actual role-playing game, and I'm pretty sure that was Brad's too.
No.
Are we talking the game or just the genre?
I think we're talking about the genre, right? We're talking about the genre of Cyberpunk. Or are we talking
but
about
you can answer the question. You can answer the question for both. You could be like, okay, my first exposure to the genre is this. My first exposure to the game was this.
That's another thing, Maxwell. Whenever we ask questions like that, we're generally expecting about 3 to 5 answers. So
yeah, if I ask any question, answer the question you wished I had asked. Like, feel free, like, be a politician about it. Like, do not be like, oh, well, what do you mean by that question? No, just go.
Just go. All right. Okay, so for me, like, going into the game aspect of it was the actual role-playing game.
But yes, I will agree with you there. That was my first introduction to Cyberpunk, the game.
The genre in itself, it was probably through Akira.
Yeah. Oh, damn! Yeah, we match up to that too.
Yep.
Ooh, Akira. Okay.
Yep.
So that movie holds a very special place in my heart because it's one of the first animes I watched, and it was kind of one of the first injections into Cyberpunk.
Hold on. Let's see how much further we match up. How did you get access to it?
I'm pretty sure it's probably through you.
Oh, okay. Well then, okay. Technically, it's the same then. But yeah, I got mine through the Columbia House. I still owe them like 16 cents.
I think everybody owes Columbia House 16 cents still.
Man, if they collected all of that, they'd have enough money to reopen. I would say mine, now that you bring it up, I mean, think about Akira, but mine was probably Akira as well. That was definitely my first anime. And I don't remember which one I had first, but I had it on DVD, and I also had it pirated off of LimeWire.
Oh, shit.
Come and get me, coppers.
Don't worry, the virus is already dead.
They did. But basically, I remember having it pirated off of LimeWire because I downloaded it for when I went on a deployment with the Navy, and like I wanted it on my laptop. So I probably had the DVD first because I didn't want to bring my DVD collection with me, and that's probably where I saw it and how I knew how to download that one. And I want to say I bought the DVD at a Best Buy.
Okay. All right.
And then as far as the game, I've never played Cyberpunk, and I've only ever played Shadowrun once, and it wasn't even official. It was in a friend's living room, and Baron was just like, "Hey, you guys want to play a game?" And so we did.
It was in Mandy's kitchen.
Yeah.
When
we just sat around. It was kind of both. In those apartments, there wasn't a whole lot of separation. So there's just like one doorway between the kitchen and living room.
But yeah, Maxwell, I ran him through a piss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. For anybody listening at home, piss means it's PYS. Play yourself.
Play yourself. The classic game.
And it was basically during the ghost dance. Like, it was like the ghost dance happened. Now what do you do? And most of us had no idea what was going on or what game we were playing. A couple of people did, but most of us had no idea what was going on. And a couple other people caught on as we were playing, but I had no idea. I'd never played Shadowrun before. And technically I still haven't, except for that little game there. So the first time I've played Cyberpunk was on my PlayStation 4 when 2077 came out.
I'm sorry. Speaking of video games, my favorite Cyberpunk video game was Shadowrun for the Sega Genesis, not the Super Nintendo.
Awesome. Don't knock that. Don't get knocky with that game.
I'm not. It's great. I love it. It's great.
He's definitely sung its praises more than once on this podcast.
Oh yeah.
That was a great game. Like, I don't know, there was just something about it, and just like running around and doing the missions. I hated going in the internet though. Like, going on the net was the hardest part of that game.
And the story on it too. Like, it's like when I first started playing it, it was it was fun. But then once you get into like the story of it, and you cease to become like, the street level guy, and you're like, what the fuck is going on with these dragons? What the It's great. Which again, that's a common question you ask in any Shadowrun game, is what the fuck is going on with these dragons?
That is true.
Why is one of them the president?
Yeah, exactly. Why was one of them the president? Did you just say that, Rick?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I've heard. Well, you guys referenced that when we did the first post-apocalyptic episode.
Right.
So you never played the role-playing game?
Not officially, no. I did play. There was the Shadowrun. I guess you'd call it an RTS. Like, it was a very XCOM style game on Steam. Yeah. I played that one, but never the role-playing game. The problem with me and tabletop role-playing games in general is I play tabletop role-playing games when I meet a bunch of people who want to play tabletop role-playing games and never have before, and they all want to try D&D. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm running D&D. And that's what it always comes back to. Anytime I have any kind of gaming group and we're like, oh, let's start a game. What should we play? And it's always like, oh, we should play D&D. I like D&D. I know that system. And it's like, let's try something else. And they're like, no, let's run D&D. And I'm like, all right, cool. I like D&D. It's fine. So I don't push back too hard.
There's nothing wrong with D&D, but I would say that the classic Cyberpunk 2020, which they just kind of came back out with it. They re-released it with the release of the video game, the Cyberpunk 2077. They kind of re-released Cyberpunk, and they gave it like a nice hardback edition, and it's the same classic system, which is a D10 based system, and it's great. Like, pick it up, and just like when your people are like, oh, let's play D&D, you just hold up the book and be like, look, there's this brand new nice shiny book. It's beautiful. It's nice. It's got nice colorful pictures, and like, they'll love it. Because the character creation process of that game is what was so much fun. Because it was the first game that I came across as a player that let you just randomly make your character. And you could have made like a Russian that had an afro, that had crazy fingernails, and that was your character, and that's what you rolled with.
Nice.
And the system was really good too. Because it was all, it was D10, it was everything else like that. I know one of Brad's most famous characters is from the Cyberpunk world.
Are we talking about Bones?
Yes, we're talking about Bones.
Okay.
I mean, I'm familiar with D10 systems in general. My first TTRPG was actually Exalted.
Oh, wow.
And
It does go a little differently than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went from Exalted to World of Darkness.
Right, which
and
is
then
essentially the same thing.
and then World of Darkness to D&D, and I've been stuck in D&D ever since. I've bought other books.
I've been trying to get you out of it, but the rest of the group
I know. I've bought other books since. Well, I've won one-shots of other games. Like, I've run Dread and, like, sung its endless praises on this podcast. And City of Mist, I recently ran a one-shot for.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
How is City of Mist?
It's really good if you like narrative stuff, and you could totally run a cyberpunk thing in City of Mist.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
The thing about City of Mist is it's extremely narrative heavy, so when it comes to the rules, you could set it literally anywhere at any time.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. I like those.
I have my doubts about it because it kept getting advertised on Facebook, and I'm like, this can't be that good.
But it's fucking good. It's really fucking good.
If Facebook says it's good, it can't be good.
That's just like when Ready Player One came out in the Loot Crate, and I'm like, this can't be any good.
And it was amazing.
Right. Which is also kind of cyberpunk.
A little bit. I kind of stopped buying RPG books because I was like, I'm never going to get to run this. I'm not going to spend the money on it. However, my current D&D group, recently on Humble Bundle, they had the entire Fallout RPG system by, I think it was Morpheus Games or something like that, or Modifus or something like that. But it was like you get like the player's guide and like the starter kit and like a bunch of other crap, and they were like, you get all of this and it's only like $20. And so one of my players bought it, and the rest of my group is excited. So I might actually get to play something else very soon, and that'll be the Fallout game. Yeah, yeah. If I'm lucky, one of my other players will actually run it, and then I'll actually get to play.
Oh, settle down! Don't get fucking greedy.
You see, like me and Brad, when we came through our gaming through high school and up until after high school, I think we were actually really blessed because we had a group where we played a lot of different games, and
in a week,
yeah, and and sometimes it was a great thing because we were always playing something new, something different. But sometimes it was kind of bad because you would like a certain character, but then you knew you weren't going to go back to that game. So,
yeah.
Yep.
But
the good thing is, though, we got to experience a lot of Cyberpunk games. Actually, we played Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, Bubblegum Crisis.
Bubblegum Crisis was actually one of our longest games we played.
Weirdly enough, yes. So Bubblegum Crisis, again, I'm sure anybody listening has at least heard of the Bubblegum Crisis. It's an anime series and a movie, correct?
Yeah.
Like they did a movie of it too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, every single popular anime has a movie somewhere.
Yeah, true. And it was out in the 80s, I believe.
I think it was the 80s or at least like the early 90s.
Like I think it at least came out in Japan in the 80s. But yeah, that's very cyberpunk, kind of reminiscent of Ghost in the Shell. Like Ghost in the Shell could have been going on in the background of Bubblegum Crisis.
And actually, that system we played was pretty much the same system that they used for the Cyberpunk game.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Bubblegum Crisis is 5 days younger than me. Its first episode came out on February 25th, 1987.
Damn, I'm good. You can look at some anime and just tell. It's like that's anime.
80s definitely had a very distinct style when it came to anime and almost everything else.
So, what were your thoughts on the game since you never played the role-playing game?
I personally have been enjoying it a lot. I did have to start over because my first character, I made a nomad, and I cranked her technical and her hacking and like all that kind of stuff. I made like a really intelligent character, and everything I was doing in combat became too intense for the game and the system, so it kept crashing.
Oh, wow.
Because I would run into combat and then like I'd hack this guy and then hack this guy and then hack this camera and hack this turret, and then like I'd use this weapon that I crafted, and then like I'd do this and do that, and like it just ended up being too much for the system. So I was like, screw it, I was like, I really want to experience this story. So I started over. I made a corpo. I'm like, this dude is corporate muscle. Like, he's good with guns, and he's big, and he can swing his fists.
Now,
and so I made it.
Just because I feel obligated, tell the viewers at home what system you're running it on.
PlayStation 4.
Okay.
PlayStation 4, which I think I mentioned that earlier. And, like, honestly, it's getting better. They just released a great big update for it, which some people didn't like, but whatever. But I basically just made a guide that where I wasn't doing 100 things at once in combat. I just, like, shoot the guys, and, like, that's it. But to be honest with you, I kind of really enjoying him because the Corpo exclusive dialogue options are really cool, I think. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm liking this. I'm digging this character. So, I mean, I haven't beat it yet. I got a lot of other things going on, but I really do like the game. I mean, the bugs don't take me out of it personally. I mean, I've been playing Bethesda games for forever, so like I know how this works.
Yeah, that's what I think is hilarious, is the people that want to bitch about the people that want to bitch about this game and not performing the way it should. It's like, bitch, have you played Skyrim? And then, two, how many mods you got on this
at
thing?
release?
No, I mean, even now, I was just playing the game the other day, and wait, what was it? It was one of those saber cats. Just started floating up into the air. Goodbye, saber cat.
Oh yeah.
Never to be seen again.
But it's even worse. My point being is, it was even worse at release, and like, you know, honestly, playing Cyberpunk at release was nothing compared to playing a Bethesda game at release. I was like, what is everybody complaining about? I didn't get it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I love the game. I played through with a street kid, so I kind of went like the complete solo route, and I've had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, I've ran into a couple bugs here and there, but it's like you said, it never really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that's really kind of like, I was reading a review of the game one time, and the person that was reviewing the game was just pretty much trashing the game on the basis of they didn't know what to do. And I was just I was kind of amazed by that, because I love how open the city is.
Right.
I love how you can just go about and do your business, and like you can do like all the side missions you want before you even hit like the main quest and stuff like that. So for me, that's a lot of fun. And I was just really kind of like, I didn't understand where this person was coming from. And like, I felt what part of the main story that I did play, I did feel like a connection to that character. And I wanted to find out more and push more along the story with it than a lot of other games that I've played. So
one thing I will give Cyberpunk 2077 is that a lot of narrative-based games, when they have these branching decision choices and things like that, they actually don't affect the story much, because they still only wrote one story, right? Yeah. And like, they're kind of trying to guide you along that story, and there might be little differences and stuff like that. But Cyberpunk, I can tell just from having to start with one character and then make an entirely different character. Yeah, certain story beats happen exactly the same way, but like, your decisions do affect the story in a big way. And you can end up with like entirely different gameplay experiences and endings just depending on what you choose, which is a whole lot better than a lot of other narrative-based games where like, oh yeah, we've got 10 different endings and like 8 of them are exactly the same. There's just a different dude talking.
You in the game, you have a mid-credit scene? A mid-credit scene that is affected by every personal encounter that you've had in the game. It's crazy. It's crazy. Have you beat it?
Who you asking, me or
oh yeah, that's right. You can't see me looking at you. Jason, have you beat it?
I haven't beat it yet.
Okay, so yeah, you have to beat it, and then mid credits, I guess you'll see something happen that kind of goes over all of your personal interactions that you've had throughout the game.
That's cool. Like I gotta get back on it. I took a little break on it.
Yeah, I beat it through Nomad, and then I started going back through with Corpo, and I've taken a break from it right now too, which, you know, is done way more with that game than I probably have any other game I've ever played. So I never even realized it through my first play with the Nomad. But there's a cemetery in there. There's a cemetery in Night City, and it is simultaneously beautiful and creepy and super feral. It's so weird. So there's a quest in the game that you have to complete by going there. I had to look this up online because there are no hints at all that tells you this at all. But yeah, so I went there and I walked through, and there were like interactions of people talking, and it was cool. It was really neat. Yeah, if you get a chance, you should go and check that out.
I definitely will. Now, I do have a couple complaints about the game, but they're small complaints.
Okay, what are they? I
hate the first person view. I want third person view. I hate first person shooters.
I know a lot of people do. And I had to get used to it.
When I heard that it was made by the same people that did Witcher, I was really hoping for a third person view.
You know what? Let's stop there real quick. Let's go back to the bugs. People are fucking bitching about Cyberpunk's bugs. It's like, bitch, you bought a game made by the people who made The Witcher.
And it was rushed.
Yeah, and it was rushed because you bitches couldn't keep your goddamn mouth shut and let them do what they needed to do. You people pissed me off. I'm about to make a guild decree. None of y'all who bitch about that game get to ever be a guild member. Not like you fucking think. I'm not saying it. I'm not doing
it.
I'm saving it.
Wow. Saving it. You're gonna save it. Okay, all right. I was gonna say, whoa, that's pretty sweeping.
You could have very easily just said, I'm making the decree. Cyberpunk 2077 is an okay game. Stop making fun of it.
No, you know what though? If I made a guild decree about that, it wouldn't be Cyberpunk is an okay game. Cyberpunk's a great game. I love it. You know why? Because I had a system that it was designed to be played on. Yes, I know that the higher up said, "Oh, everything's going to be good on PS4," but you dumbasses believed them. You dumbasses believed them. Yes, I get it. I get it. I only have a PS4 too. I don't have a PS5. But you know what? I went out and bought a computer with my stimmies just to be able to play this game.
This is my stimmy Cyberpunk rig.
Donald Trump bought my computer, and I don't care.
And probably my only other complaint about the game is I wish there was more choices with the character creation.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
Coming from playing the tabletop game, I like the ideal of a solo. I like the ideal of a fixer. I got real excited when I saw that there was a nomad and a corp and a corpo. I was really kind of upset that the street kid wasn't a solo. I just kind of felt like the street kid just felt like a solo, and it should
be. Here's the thing on that, and Rick, I know you're not familiar with the role-playing game, so just bear with me on this one. You played in Cyberpunk in the role-playing game, and you know that you all have your classes, which are like occupations. Mm-hmm. There is overlap. So you can be a nomad, right? That's your life path, right?
Right.
But as a nomad, you can also be a solo. You can be a techie. It's just dependent exactly on how you build it. And I actually think that's how the role-playing game should be, the tabletop role-playing game. You should be able to choose a life path, which could be nomad or street kid or corpo or something like that. But then in that life path is where you get to choose your career. Because you could be a corporate solo or a corporate netrunner or a corporate techie. You could be a nomad netrunner. You could be a street kid netrunner. You could be all of these things.
That's kind of how I feel about it. And this comes from my experience with playing Bethesda games, I think. When I play Fallout and I play Skyrim. I remember playing Oblivion. And with Oblivion, you chose your star sign and stuff like that. And you were essentially choosing a class. And you're basically choosing abilities that you would level up in faster. But you could also just choose to have like, it wasn't like no star sign, but there was a star sign where basically you didn't get a bonus to anything, and then you kind of build your character as you go along. And that's what Skyrim more or less did, and this is what Fallout did. You don't pick a class, you just put your stats where you want them, and then go do what you want to do, and you become a character class. And like the cool thing about that is you get to choose, like if you want to be a sneaky guy in Skyrim, but you want to go straight assassin and you don't care about lockpicking, you don't have to put any of your skills in lockpicking. And then you could just like put all your skills over there. Like when it came to when I created my Corpo character in Cyberpunk, I was like, I want this to be a big, heavy muscle dude. So like I put like pretty much no points in like pistols and stuff like that. It's all rifles and heavy guns for me. Where I feel like if I had been like, oh, this is your gunner class, like it would have been like all guns, or you know, whatever they call that class in Cyberpunk, or a class similar to that. So whatever class you want to be, I feel like in Cyberpunk you can just put your points in those skills, and there you are.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like the beautiful thing, because it is kind of like what Brad said. In the role playing game, like you picked your class, and there was no, so like if you were a nomad, you had the special ability of family, and like that was kind of like the one drawback to the actual tabletop role playing game was if you were solo, you were just combat, and then everybody else that was not a solo either kind of got left out of combat, or they just had to wait till their turn, and the game would have been a much better if it was done under kind of what Brad said, where like you could be a nomad like techie or a nomad medic or something like that, because then you could have a little bit of combat, you could have a little bit of everything, and it would have made the game a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. Like Maxwell was saying, with a solo, if you have a solo in your group and you wanted to be combat, you might as well just scrap everything you're doing and just be a solo at that point, because you're not able to compete. You won't. So definitely, I think.
Yeah, they definitely couldn't match that when it came to the video game, because when you're playing a video game, you need to have combat. Like you need to be a combat-centric character. Now you could approach combat in a bunch of different ways, but you have to have a level of combat when you're playing a video game, which is probably why they didn't, immediately mirror the role-playing game.
Yeah, and I get that, and it's a good thing that they didn't, but it still just would have been nice, like if it would have been like maybe like a prestige thing, be like, hey, you've earned like the prestige of techie, or you've earned the prestige of solo. Like that I think that would have been cool, because I geeked out every time they mentioned, like every time there was Johnny Silverhand, I geeked out, and the mention of Morgan and Nomad Santiago. So like a lot of the names they brought up from the role playing game, I totally.
Yeah, I know you didn't play the game, Rick, but like a lot of those names that they drop in that game are straight from Cyberpunk lore. So yeah,
I know that mostly from like press releases and stuff like that beforehand. When they made no, you would have had to purposely avoid learning about Johnny Silverhand, not to learn about him and his backstory. Once Keanu came out and was like, I'm playing Johnny Silverhand, everybody was like, oh my god, it's Johnny Silverhand, and here's why he's the coolest character ever. So yeah, I know plenty about that, even though I never played the game. Which, a couple things I will say about Johnny Silverhand and Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
One, I blame the fact that the game was rushed 100% on Keanu Reeves.
That's fair.
Because when he came out on that stage and did the whole "you're breathtaking," and I'm Johnny Silverhand, and Cyberpunk's going to be amazing, everybody was like, no, we need this game now.
Yeah, he got the hype machine rolling. Now, let's just say, all in all, we can blame who should be blamed, and it's those fucking assholes who were out there bitching and whining on the internet about wanting the game now. Yeah, you heard me.
I agree with that.
However, let's just take into account that we should have known that those trolls exist.
Yes.
Maybe we shouldn't have thrown Keanu out to the wolves right away.
Right.
Shouldn't have done that.
Right. There's a lot of things you can blame it on and a lot of things you can trace it back to, but that moment is what really kicked it off.
Yep.
2, when I started to play the game, because I got it at release, I was expecting him to have some little small role, kind of like cameo where he pops in here and there, or maybe you watch him in a brain dance or like something like that. But dude had a big role in that game. He is one step away from being main character. The only reason he's not main character is because of V. And even then, you can kind of be like, all right, V, you're done. Johnny's taking over. And then he is the main character.
Hey, just get to the end of the game. I'm not saying anything else. Just get to the end of the game.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed that like aspect of it, like how much he was in it, and everything else. Because I honestly was kind of worried that he was just going to be like little blips.
Exactly. Yeah.
Little cameos, and I was actually kind of sad about that because I was like, that was such a huge character in the tabletop game that I would hate to see them just kind of throw it away. And like there were like many times like I wanted Morgan Blackhand. Like that's the only character besides Johnny Handy, Johnny Silverhand.
Johnny Handy
was Morgan Blackhand. Why did everybody have there was Johnny Silverhand, Morgan Blackhand. Why?
What was with the hands? The color-coded hands. Yeah, I think Morgan Blackhand was supposed to be in the game, but they had to cut a lot of the stuff that they were doing. So, like, they were going to show him. He was, like, when they went in the helicopter to go take out Arasaka, he was one of the people on the ground distracting Arasaka. Yeah, they were going to snap over to that, but they had to cut all that shit.
God damn it.
Yeah.
It's them fuckers rushing the game again.
I blame the internet people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
100%. But right behind them, the office guys in the company, the higher
the
ups.
goddamn corpos,
not the devs.
Goddamn corpo. I'm going to say this. I'm going to put some blame on Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Warner Brothers could have been like, "Hey guys, take your time, make the best product ever," and they were like, "No, we got to listen to the people. We need this shit now."
Now, all that said, we've seen what they can do with a game. How do you think a movie would do?
I think a movie would be great.
I would love to see it. Like maybe flashback to 2020.
That would be cool.
Oh, speaking of the big time difference, 2020, 2077. I don't know how far you guys have gotten in the game, but did anybody else try to romance the 70, 80-year-old woman?
I have not yet.
Oh, okay.
I got really disappointed because, like I said, my first character was the Nomad, and she was like a techie, and like I was getting really into what's her name, Judy, I think, the girl who makes her own brain dances.
Yeah.
Right. What's her name again?
Judy.
Okay. I was getting really into Judy, and I was like, Judy's gonna be my girl. And then I made my second character, and I made him a corpo. And then I went to meet Judy, and it's like, no, Judy's not interested in you anymore. And I'm like, well, shit. Yeah. All right, cool. I guess I'll find somebody else.
Did anybody else find it kind of weird how everybody else had like really cool futuristic names, and then there was just Judy?
Yeah, Judy. Well, you know what? In 2077, maybe that's like a name no one ever hears anymore. So like they use it.
That's true.
Ooh, it's all new again.
It's like
Judy also might have a handle like on the net that you just never get to know.
I kind of like equate it to like if you meet somebody in this day and age and their name is like Broomhilda. Like, right. Yeah, that's a throwback to the 20s. Thanks, Broomhilda.
Yeah, I guess that would be kind of that would be a little much.
She's probably got a handle we never get to hear. She's probably got like, she's Brain Dance Crusher or something. Like, who knows?
Any netrunner isn't going to be on the net as, Judy. Wait. Judy is her handle. You never learned her real name. Her real name's all weird and futuristic.
There.
I do like the point system in it.
Yeah,
Like I did like how that worked out. So
yeah.
damn it.
The system was great, and like I was saying, the way they did it gave me actually a lot of ideas on how to mess around with the actual tabletop system.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like the idea of coming up with a, like, how they have the life paths where you roll on them and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Just come up with set life paths, and like, this is the chart that you roll on if you're a nomad. This is the chart that you roll on if you're a corporate. And then you just get different bonuses, or you could get different bonuses depending on what chart you roll on.
Yeah. I mean, it's the beautiful thing about that system is that it's a very modifiable system. Like you can very easily work a system where it's because it is like it's just a D10 and then numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no overlaying hard mechanics. There's no magic to kind of reconfigure. It's just straight up.
And I will say, just again, for anybody listening at home, the game specifically that we are talking about is Cyberpunk 2020. There are other Cyberpunk games at this point. I think Cyberpunk Red is the most recent one, I think.
Yes, that's kind of the remake of the Cyberpunk 2020 game.
Gotcha. So we got Cyberpunk Red, which is the current one, and then like somewhere in between there, it's like Cyberpunk something, and like you're playing Street Kids or something.
That was Cyber Generation.
That's it.
Man. That came out after Cyberpunk 2020 because it's made by the same people, and that's where they had superpowers.
So weird.
Oh, but it was such a fun game. We played it.
Yeah. Ah, good times.
It was cool because then you could have like the guy that had like the middle arms, and he could like make weapons and guns out of his hands.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. It was good.
It's too bad I don't think we'll see a sequel out of 2077 or too much DLC out of 2077 just because it was rushed. Like, it just didn't get the returns on investment.
It got too much bad press, too.
Yeah.
They could have made their money, but they've had so much bad press that all of that's going to affect the sale on the sequel. So,
yeah. It's one game that I really hope that would have a second part or more downloadable content.
Unfortunately, Warner Brothers is pretty much trying to bury CD Projekt Red at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of a shame. I mean, it was a good game. Just people need to just really relax.
They need to focus is what they need to do. I think I get it. If shit comes out that you don't like, you know what? That's cool. That's cool. But when you're going to go on and blast a game, why don't you tell people what you were doing when this game didn't fucking work for you? Why don't you tell everybody that you were, playing on a PlayStation 4 that you had a shit ton of mods on, which you can't do PlayStation 4. But anyways, why don't you tell us you were playing on a PlayStation 4 and you were trying to break the system by, not downloading, but, making a whole bunch of items so that you can sell. Why don't you tell people that you were on a PC that probably wasn't up to snuff and you had like a shit ton of mods on it to be able to play the game how you want and it fucking broke, let people know that you weren't playing it the way it was supposed to be played, quit being a bitch about it.
Yeah.
And then let people experience it on their own.
Well, because that would make too much sense.
Yeah.
It also required someone to take some level of personal responsibility, and ain't nobody can do that.
Ain't nobody.
So, nobody. Now, to be fair, like you said, people were promised that it would run that way. People were promised that like you only need this level of PC. You can run it on a PS4. So it's not that I want to be clear. There's not that some of these complaints aren't valid.
No, well, I will give it just for the PS4 and the Xbox One. That's the only one I'm going to give a pass for, because the computer I got specifically to be able to run Cyberpunk, and it has all the recommended specs. It runs perfect. Nothing wrong with it. There was a couple glitches. Again, I'm playing a game by CD Projekt Red. I expected that.
Right.
But it ran perfectly. It never crashed. It had, sometimes I'd look in the mirror and I was naked. Oh no. What am I going to do with that? So, yeah, anybody that's out there, yeah, I get it that, you could have had a faulty copy or something, or maybe your computer was having a bad day. I don't fucking know. But you know what? It ran perfect for me. I don't have a crazy good system. I have an okay system. And it ran perfect. So, yeah, these people out here, again, they're just trying to break the game. And yes, I get it. It's your game. You should be able to play it how you want. But if it's going outside the recommendations, then expect some fucking fault.
Right.
I only had one crash. The whole time that I played it, the game only crashed once on me. And I played it on the Xbox One. So, like, the whole time I was playing it, I didn't see what people, like, the problems that people were having. I mean, yeah, there were normal bugs and stuff like that happened. But, like you said, after playing Fallout and Skyrim and Witcher, you get kind of, I mean, there's one of small little, there were small little problems with GTA 5. So I didn't see what the problem was.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Skyrim has crashed on me a few times, actually. Like, just shut it, like the game just shut down. Fuck, what was I playing? I think I was playing Ark, and that shut my game down a few times.
So yeah, I've never played Ark, so I couldn't tell you.
It's another popular game that has a lot of problems that are overlookable because it's a fun game, just like Cyberpunk. It's got some faults.
Do you think that people gave Cyberpunk such a hard time because of the promises that was made about it, and that, I don't know, that it just seemed like it was a game that people were really chomping at the bit for, and then
I think that has a very large deal to do with it. Like, it contributes to the issue. So all of us here on this podcast are saying we've played Fallout, we've played Skyrim, we've played Oblivion, we've played Witcher, we've played these games by Bethesda and CD Projekt Red. And if you look at, there was an Assassin's Creed not that long ago that caught a whole lot of crap for being super buggy. I forget which one it was. I want to say it was the one that was set in America. But the whole thing is, these are AAA. Your average gamer is playing these games. Your average person who buys Call of Duty every year, your average person who buys Assassin's Creed every year, your person who is buying the super hyped games are buying these games. These are not the people who play Fallout. These are not the people who play Skyrim. And because of Keanu, all of these people went out and bought this game. And they are not used to playing a game that has those kind of bugs because, and I hate to generalize here, but they're playing these yearly release games. They're playing these Call of Duties, who, let's be real, Call of Duty is made by 2 different studios. So each of these studios has 2 years to improve a game they already have.
Yeah.
The game is done. They're just like, we have 2 years to make a slightly better version of this game and re-release it. The story is 4 hours long, maybe, and then they jump into the multiplayer. And to have this vast open world with this great big story and all these different options and all these different things that can go wrong, they're not used to playing games like that. Right. So the moment they see this little bug, they're like, oh, does this game have any polish at all? Like, my jacket didn't load. And that's the end of the world for them. So, because the games they play, because they're playing Fortnite every goddamn night, and Fortnite is polished to the ends of the goddamn earth because it can be, they're not used to this level of game.
So
that could just be being salty. That could just be overgeneralizing and like shitting on COD gamers, because like I have been since I worked for GameStop and I had to deal with them on a daily basis.
I think you're right. I mean, to be honest with you, I think you're absolutely right, because I also think that there's probably people that picked it up because they watched the Witcher show on Netflix and they're like, oh, these were the people that made Witcher, so it's got to be great. And then they went and played it and they're like, oh man, this isn't anything like The Witcher.
Matt
Well,
Lillard.
we watched the Witcher show on Netflix. They went and picked up The Witcher 3, which The Witcher 3 has been polished to the end of the earth now because it's been out forever. So it's already had patch after patch after patch after DLC. So The Witcher works now. If you had played Witcher when it first released, you'd get an idea of what Cyberpunk was going to be like when it first released. But now they've played The Witcher polished. Now they're going to play Cyberpunk not polished, and they're not getting what they expected.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Full disclosure, I didn't like The Witcher. I didn't like it as a game.
I like it as a concept.
I'm glad as a concept. Yeah, I would read the books. I'll read the books.
I would play that as a TTRPG.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes,
Like
yes.
the
which I
whole
think we're working on.
yeah, like we've talked about this dude tons of times on the cast, but Z Bradshaw had a video on how to make your D&D campaign more like The Witcher, where you take a party that's like level 5, you throw a monster that's like CR8 or CR9 at them, but like half the hit points, and then make it resistant, give it 3 more resistances, but then give it another vulnerability. And then you make, before the players go to fight this monster, they start researching it. They start asking the townspeople. They find out, oh, it's weak to this. Oh, this will hurt it. This won't. And like they can find it out through stories and lore. And then they can go get their blade oils and their potions and things like that, which is what, if you play Witcher the game, a good amount of that game, if you play it the way to make the fights actually winnable, is you got to go research that monster and find out what oils and potions and what you need to do to go fight that monster, which if I could do that in a TTRPG, I'd love that. But when I do it in a video game, and I'm sure it's my own fault, but like, I'm just like, skip. Just give me the information I need.
Right.
Or playing it as a tabletop RPG, I would so get involved in that lore. I'd be like, yes, tell me the story of the man who went to go fight the witch and drowned in the lake. And like, yeah, tell me that story. I'm so invested. So, like I said, I like The Witcher as a concept, and I think it could work elsewhere. The show was great. I don't think it had any of that in it, really. But as a video game, I'm just like, just let me kill the fucking thing. Like, don't make me go find a new sword and a new blade oil and like 16 different fucking potions and like, fuck, just let me kill the thing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that statement, because sometimes when you're playing the games, you just kind of want to get skipped through. Like, I don't, if it's a video game and they're talking and they're reading, I get really impatient. But if they're talking, I'm okay with it. If I can turn off subtitles, I'm good. Which is weird because I like subtitle movies, but in video games, I don't want the subtitles.
The only reason I need subtitles for Cyberpunk is because they speak different languages and the subtitles will translate it for you.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But like when they're talking English, I don't need the subtitles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I also kind of liked about Cyberpunk was, because it is kind of a role-playing game, and most of the role-playing games and everything else will have a form of magic. But I liked how, to me, it felt like they substituted out the magic with the hacking and everything else.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I had that same thought.
And I thought it was cool. Like, you could give another person cyber psychosis, and they would go crazy, and they were around. That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I accidentally found my favorite hack in that, and it's gross. Contagion.
Yes.
That is gross. You max out your stats, you throw contagion on somebody, people just die. Just die. It's crazy.
I also really like the cyberware system that they have.
Yeah.
And everything else like that. Like, if people would just stop bitching about the small little cosmetic thing and just kind of look at what was given to them, that they really missed out on a really great game that was very inventive and was actually a lot of fun.
I think Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be one of those games that you see a second life for. Like, just the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is Earthbound for the SNES. Earthbound tanked in the US. It was a popular game in Japan. It did terrible in the US, mostly because it had a terrible ad campaign. But then there were a bunch of people who grew up, became adults, remembered playing this game as a kid, and had like nostalgic feelings about it, and started playing it and started showing it to their friends. And were like, "Hey, have you tried Earthbound?" And then it became super popular to the point where in Japan it was the Mother series. It was Mother 1, 2, and 3. And over here, we got Mother 2 as Earthbound, and we never got Mother 1 and 3. But now we're getting all of them because people went back and played Earthbound so much. And I think we're going to see that with a game like Cyberpunk 2077. Unfortunately, it'll be like 5 to 10 years from now. But it'll happen, and then somebody will create a reboot or a sequel or something like that. Then we'll get more. But that's what I see happening with Cyberpunk 2077.
I think the chances will improve if they're allowed to keep patching it and adding stuff onto it. I know that they were talking DLC at one point in time, and that like the first DLC was going to be free because of everything that was going on. But I mean, if they're trying to bury them, then who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of hope
Guild Trade bringing in the first DLC right there.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hope that there is downloadable content, but like I know, like for me, like having run through the game once I'm pretty close to finishing it, but running through the game once with a street kid, like I kind of want to go back and I want to play again as a corpo, and I want to go back again and play as a nomad. I want to try.
I highly recommend going through as a nomad. I almost feel like the game was written for the nomad.
I kind of got that feeling too.
And I would highly recommend doing your run as a corpo because I love the dialogue options and the character options that corpos get. It's super cool. And I would also say if you're going to do those secondary runs, just do it with an entirely different build as far as your combat style because you'll be able to do an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
Well, I suggest doing it as a street kid just because there's three options and you guys all chose the other two options.
I will say one thing I noticed. So my first run through, like I said, I was going super techie and I was a nomad and I would hack everything. Like there was no such thing as a locked door for me. And like when I went through as my corpo had like no tech skills and I'd reach that door and they're like, no, you can't open it. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm like, I need to get in here. And then I'd find some window with shutters and I would literally just force them open with my brute strength. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I can roll with this. So, like, once again, there was no such thing as a locked door because I'm like, I'm going to break this bitch down. So, like, yeah, definitely do it. Do things different ways because you'll have a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, and that's like the one thing, like, I beat Skyrim. I went back and I played Skyrim again, but then I got bored with it. And I played Fallout. I went back. I played Fallout again, and I got bored with it. I don't find myself getting bored with Cyberpunk 2077 because there is a lot of different options and everything else that you can choose to do. So I think that the replayability on that game is a lot more than a lot of the other RPG games that are out there.
Yeah.
And just think if people would have kept the damn mouth shut and they had a chance to develop it a little more. Just imagine.
Like I said, we'll get there. 5 to 10 years from now, we'll get that game.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years from now, I'm going to be playing this game and I'm going to be getting on the internet again and be like, you sons of bitches, this is what we could have had 5 to 10 years ago.
If 5 to 10 years from now, if it's CD Projekt Red does their own fucking Kickstarter because Cyberpunk is getting a resurgence and they're like, hey, y'all are talking about Cyberpunk again. If you want this game you could have had, maybe throw some money our way. And then like they actually get to take their time with it because they're funding it themselves and it's a Kickstarter and stuff like that. Then I think, like I said, I think that's what we're going to end up with.
I would throw some money at that.
Mm-hmm. Especially because it's Kickstarter, because you're going to have neat little goals and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
like you could play as Morgan Blackhand.
I mean, we got to play Johnny Silverhand, so I mean, why not? I bet Morgan Blackhand would be fucking great.
He'd just be a tank. That's all. That's all.
Yeah,
Just make the exact same game, but make it co-op. You can put together your own team of motherfuckers. You'd be like, okay, here's your techie, here's your muscle, here's your face, like put together your own team of motherfuckers, and like now go do your run.
Actually, that would be actually a really cool feature to do with it. Is like a multiplayer online game, like a World of Warcraft or something like that, or like an Elder Scrolls Online.
or GTA Online.
Yeah, I mean GTA 5 Online is really fun, and I could really see them adapting the Cyberpunk world into that very easily, and it would be so much fun.
Mhm.
It'd be annoying because GTA 5 is pretty annoying when you're just out driving in your car and someone shoots you with a missile from a jet plane. So,
All right, so we've been talking about 2077 a lot.
Yeah.
What else we got going on in the world of Cyberpunk, or what else do we want to be going on in the world of Cyberpunk? Just the genre in general.
Just more. Period. I mean, what the latest thing we've had is 2077. We haven't had a Shadowrun update in a while.
yeah.
I'd love to see more Shadowrun.
Didn't they come out with a Shadowrun 4th or 5th edition?
I'm not sure. I think maybe they've been kind of keeping up with D&D. Like when D&D almost always when D&D gets a release, Shadowrun seems to get a release.
Because it was like a few years ago, didn't Shadowrun get bought by Catalyst Games?
Did they?
I think so.
It looks like 6th edition was released in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
FASA Fantasy Productions and Catalyst Games. Yep.
Okay. I thought I saw that somewhere. Like, I'd like to see more of a Shadowrun kind of push. I'd like to see a Shadowrun game, like a video game.
Shadowrun is my preferred Cyberpunk game. Only because
I will say, looking over this Shadowrun 6th edition stuff, they did it very similar to how 5th edition was done. Like you can get the player's handbook for $40, but there's also a beginner box, just like D&D did, and like it's only $20, and I'm sure it has everything in it you need to play. So
yeah, I might look into that because I think I still only have 3rd edition.
What would you guys think of Altered Carbon?
I think I saw like one episode.
Because
it was okay.
I just saw that they came out with a role-playing game for a tabletop game for that. So
really,
yeah, to me that would be an interesting concept for a game, like especially if it gave you the option to like always kind of change your character, or like if you didn't like how your character was this time, you could keep kind of like a certain aspect of your character and move it to a different kind of character.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I'd really enjoy seeing a good Shadowrun video game.
yeah. I mean, they had the one, but that was just the shooter game.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, there was the XCOM style RTS kind of thing. It was like a grid-based deal, and you had different characters that all had different abilities. I played that one for a while, and a cool thing about that one was you could download new runs for it. Like you could download like new missions and new stories, and there was even like a mission editor. So like people could put together their own missions and own little stories for it. So you could technically create a campaign for your friends and have your friends run it. And I enjoyed that one. And I don't know a whole lot about Shadowrun because I didn't play it outside of that really, but I did enjoy it.
That would be really kind of cool.
Yeah,
like just being able to do that would be a cool thing to do.
Yeah, you can do it. The game's on Steam. If you've got a PC.
I'm not a very tech savvy guy. I'll be honest with you. Like I miss a good like Shadowrun game or a good like Cyberpunk game, and it's the one thing that always made those systems so much more fun to me than like a D&D game. Which I mean, I love D&D, but was always the character creation process.
especially with Cyberpunk.
Yeah, like it was so much more fun to go that route because you could either kind of pick or you could roll and just wind up with something completely crazy. And It was just fun.
Absolutely.
And just to kind of go back to what I was just talking about, the game I was just talking about, I just looked it up. It was called Shadowrun Returns, and it had 2 sequels, Shadowrun Dragonfall and Shadowrun Hong Kong. They're only about $15 a piece. You can buy the entire trilogy for $55, and it comes with a bunch of extra DLCs, and there's a ridiculous amount of DLCs available for it. So if you're looking for a Shadowrun fix and you've got a PC, they're on Steam and they're not expensive.
Cool. No Shadowrun and dragons, though. What's up with those dragons?
What is up with those dragons? I want to get that. I kind of want to get that one edition that came out with the book that had the other races that you could be, like where they were released, like halflings and satyrs and giants and.
What was that book called?
I don't know. I'm sure I could find it though, but yeah.
It was the Minotaurs too. The Minotaurs were in that.
Well, the Minotaurs were kind of a weird illustration. I wasn't a huge fan of their version of Minotaurs. Because then they kind of looked like they had like humanish faces and anyways.
I think they also had normal feet.
Yeah.
Oh, instead of hooves?
They needed the hooves.
It's Shadowrun. They wanted to be able to throw combat boots on them.
You gotta be able to keep. You gotta be able to be a mentor and have your Doc Martens on.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that book. I think that came out with 3rd edition because that was the edition that we played with, like Jeff and all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be 3rd edition, 3rd or at least 2nd edition.
Yeah, something like that.
Because I also think they had hobgoblins in that.
They did.
Well, who knows? There's a bunch of stuff out for 6th edition now. They might have something like that for the new edition.
That's also true.
And if they are following, like you said, like they've been keeping up with D&D, if they're playing the keeping up with the Joneses game with D&D, I mean, D&D's releasing new supplements with new races and new classes and new options all the time. So if they're trying to do that, then, geez, I can only imagine the supplements that are out for it now.
Yeah, they've always been really good at putting out splat books for Shadowrun. Well, I mean Cyberpunk too. Cyberpunk 2020 has so many friggin' source books, splat books. It's ridiculous.
They had all the corporate books, Pacific Rim,
The Chromebook out there.
the Chromebooks. I think there was at least 4 or 5 Chromebooks,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Morgan Black book.
And with the way the internet is now and how they support TTRPGs, especially during the crisis, now that everybody's been stuck playing these TTRPGs online, there exists a ton of player-created or homebrew content for all of these games. So if it's not official, you can find somebody who's written it.
It's true.
And 100 plus people who've play tested it. So.
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I think I was even thinking about using the Cyberpunk system for a Fallout game, because in Cyberpunk 2020 they have like a thing where you can roll to see what area of the body you hit, and it's like that's just that.
Yeah.
I mean, really. So
+5 difficulty. Called shot.
Oh man, gross. So once I figured out called shot in that game, it was fucking over.
Everybody did, because everybody just made called shots to the head. Like combat lasted like 2 seconds. You'd have a solo and be like, okay, I got a 10 combat sense.
Well, see, and that's what it is the solo is just kind of running in there and just taking on the big crowd. And then you got people with sniper rifles in the back. All right, called shot head. And they already have all these bonuses because they're using a sniper rifle in the first place. So it's just like, all right, called shot head, sniper rifle. All right, you hit.
Don't roll a 1.
Pretty much.
I just remember like it got so insane, like we had to just keep upping the combat factor of it because the characters were just so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of realistic. You get a guy who is not a mile away with a sniper rifle. I mean, you're probably dead.
Yeah.
You're 2 blocks down the street, in the middle of the street, and there's someone with a fucking sniper rifle just 2 blocks away. You're done. 2 blocks away, that's a cake shot. You're done.
Especially if he's a member of a team, which means he's got 3
Right.
spotters.
Right.
And you're going to tell him exactly where you are. And, like, if you don't know that he's there, so you can't do any kind of counter measures or anything, serpentine, you know?
And then add to that all the cyberware that you have that is also essentially another spotter.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it just got. I mean, like the system in itself, it just got insane because if you knew how to stack your cyberware within the game, you just
Oh, yeah.
you made a very sick character.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it was fun. I still love the game to this day. It's still one of my favorite tabletop games. I would love to get it running again.
Same.
Is that where you would suggest someone who hasn't played these games start, is with Cyberpunk? Or would you say Shadowrun or...
Cyberpunk? Shadowrun adds in the aspect of magic.
Yeah.
So
there's
complicates things.
The Cyberpunk system is very user friendly.
Yeah.
It's a very plug and go. You don't need a lot, and plus I think that there's a good factor of you can just roll up a character and you can play, and it's very basic. With Shadowrun, I think you need a little bit more of an imagination, and you gotta have, because there's not a real set. To me, there's not a real set of. You can make like a Street Sam that uses magic, whereas with Cyberpunk, if you're making a solo, you know you're going to be combat.
Right.
You can. I mean, like you can have a little bit of combat, a bit of magic. Cyberpunk in itself, I think, is the easiest way to start, and then graduate into Shadowrun.
I agree.
And then I would imagine, I mean, like, I haven't played the game, so I can't speak to its book or its ease of play, but due to this game, like you said, they basically released a new book. So probably never been a better time.
Yeah. And I think the combat system would be easier in Cyberpunk than it would be in Shadowrun. It'd be easier to understand and explain.
Yeah. Yeah, the D6 thing, while is fun, I think the way they do it, that's more for like experienced gamers. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that pick it up pretty fast, but I'm looking at it from you've never played before? Maybe not go that route.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if you're an experienced gamer and like you've played like your D&Ds and all that stuff, you can probably go through Shadowrun and be like fine. But if you've never really played, then I would say the best thing would be just start with Cyberpunk and go there.
Yep.
And it's a very user friendly system.
Indeed.
Now I've also played, I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but I've also played D20 Future and D20 Modern, which is kind of a universal system that you can throw into just about any era or any genre.
I remember
I played in D20 Future would have, I think, fit right into a Cyberpunk setting. So
there was
if anybody played that before.
There was a game that used the 3rd edition mechanics called Cybernet. And it was like the D20 version of Cyberpunk.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Because I think we've played it before, Brad.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think it was done with the Open Gaming license.
So many games were released under that.
Yeah. But Rich, you are correct. Like the D20 Future would be a great Cyberpunk setting for it.
And if you're a person like me who's been stuck with D&D forever and you're used to using like a D20 system, if you're looking for an entry point, that might be a good way to go.
Yeah, it would be.
I mean, really, if you really want to split hairs, you do D20 Modern and just make it a little more modern, like a little futuristic. I mean, you're just playing Shadowrun at that point.
Yeah.
You just add the magic in, because they have the rules for the magic in D20 Modern.
Yep.
Did they ever like update the game?
What's that?
Because the D20 Modern game, that was based off of 3rd edition, correct? So, like, did they ever like increase it? Like when Pathfinder came out in 3.75, Like,
No.
or did it just kind of die when?
One thing
everything-
that was done.
Yeah, according to this, D20 Modern hasn't been come out with something new since like 2002.
Oh wow.
And I didn't realize that was made by Wizards, so that kind of makes sense. Because like if they had come out with something like that along the lines of 5th edition or something like that, we definitely would have heard about it. There definitely would have been a big marketing push behind it. But that being said, now that I'm looking at it, D&D 5th edition has been doing gangbusters. And Cyberpunk is in the public eye right now, in the public consciousness. So if Wizards were looking to do something other than D&D, it would be a bad time for them to release a D20 Modern or a D20 Future.
No, it would be good. It'd be a good time to do it, and I think people would really gravitate towards it. I think people like that setting because it's. I think people like D&D because it kind of there is that fantasy aspect of it, but I think people also enjoy the grittiness that comes with Cyberpunk because there's just that ideal of. I still think people have those fantasies of the hard-boiled detective and gunfights and stuff like that. And with just the popularity of Call of Duty and stuff like that, I think it feeds in well. So
The thing is, a lot of those people who are playing Call of Duty are not the people who are currently playing Dungeons and Dragons.
no, you're right. But I think that like a game like a tabletop 5th edition future game, I think that would pull people into it.
Yeah, you just have to get another. I mean, like I'm sure we're going to talk about this at some point in time on the podcast with what made D&D 5th edition successful and why it is the cultural phenomenon it is right now. If you do that same thing with D20 Modern or D20 Future and get some charismatic people to make a nice little YouTube show or a nice little podcast out of it, I think you'd probably get something pretty cool.
Yeah. I kind of hope that. I kind of hope that it would happen because, we all love the ideal of cyberpunk, just the ideal of a distant, just like a crazy wrecked kind of future, a dark future. I think people enjoy that kind of setting. Just like looking at the success of, just a Cure in itself, and just how popular it is and how popular it still is, and like the Blade Runner movies. The Blade Runner movies are huge in Cyberpunk too. And I just think that a good game, a good tabletop game like that would be it fits in well into the cultural and stuff like that because it is a high fantasy concept like D&D, but it's just more future. It's into like the magic aspect of it is, but they can get into a cyberpunk and technology.
And let's be real, we haven't even talked about this, but like, if you think about our culture now and the political climate we're in and the fact that these role-playing games are essentially power fantasies, right? We're trying to like fulfill the things we can't do in real life, or at least a lot of people are. And what's more appealing right now to the current generation than overthrowing some giant corporation or taking money from the man and using it to do some punk shit? If there's a genre that embodies eat the rich, it is cyberpunk, right?
I'm glad you said it because I was thinking that. I didn't want to say it.
Oh yeah, I got no problems.
It's absolutely.
But you're right. That is kind of the thing. Like you could also go play out like overthrowing the government, and as much as I don't want to say it, but the fantasy's there to do it, and especially if you can make yourself like John Wick, then people are going to love it. And I don't have a problem with the John Wick movies, but that's what people are like. Oh, I have a gun. I want to be like John Wick. Bam, bam, bam. And I think that'd be a huge selling point to it too.
Yeah, like once again, we're using Keanu to sell this game, and
let's be honest. Keanu can sell anything.
Yeah, you're right.
That's true.
You're right.
I mean, I don't like coconut water, but if Keanu Reeves handed me some coconut water, I'd probably drink it.
At least give it a shot, you know. Then you tell him he was breathtaking. But yeah, like that's what a lot of our generation. Listen, I'd go as far back as Generation X, Millennials, Zennials, like all these generations. That's a fantasy, a power fantasy they have, you know, and that's what tabletop games are all about. And it's the time. I'd look Wizards of the Coast and whoever makes Cyberpunk and whoever makes Shadowrun, like now is the time.
Yeah, I also
jump on that, especially Wizards. Like let's be real, Wizards is like running shit right now, and like a lot of people don't. Like I was telling you, a lot of my friends, they don't want to leave D&D, right? D&D, what's they know? It's their comfort. But if you tell people this is D20 Modern, it's D&D, but you get to play in these other settings, that's a whole lot easier of a sell than here's this whole new fucking game.
Yeah, because there is also the comfort level of knowing the system already. Also,
Right.
I think another huge selling point too, like a D&D Modern or D&D Future, is everybody loves heist movies. And let's look at it. A dungeon raid is like a medieval heist. But
hey, Waterdeep Dragon Heist was one of the highest selling D&D modules right now. And it's one of the highest rated ones too. Like people who like rate the modules for how good they are. Waterdeep Dragon Heist, I mean, it is a heist, and like it's super high rated. So
if you get some people that maybe they're not too familiar with D&D, but they love kind of like the futuristic kind of modern day times, and you're like, hey, you play this game and you get to play a heist where we're gonna go rip off like millions of dollars from some douchey corporation. I mean, it's like what you said before. It totally sells itself out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think also like the idea of doing a heist is also very appealing to people.
Yeah, heists are in.
But like I said, Wizards of the Coast, I know you're not listening to this podcast. But if for some reason you are listening to this podcast, you listen close, now's the time. You need to get Chris Perkins off his ass and some other good writers, have them put together a D20 Modern, D20 Future, whatever, and release that shit. It doesn't even have to be huge. Like, you already have, like, you could literally release it as an expansion. You could be like, you need Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Player's Handbook in order to play this game. You could just be like, most of the rules are there. Here's how you just turn it into Modern or Future. And, like, give us a bunch of stats for, like, guns and shit. And, yeah, do it. Why haven't you done it yet, Wizards? Why haven't you done it yet?
Yeah,
I'm ready for it.
I would turn that into a guild decree right now if I could figure out a way to do it. But like, you know what? I'll do it the same way I did with the Disney Fast Pass guild decree. Like I told them if they released it, I'd buy it. Like Wizards, you release D20 Modern or D20 Future, I'm pre-ordering that shit. Guild decree.
Where?
You will get my money. I promise you that.
I think they'd get a lot of people's monies.
Yeah. Because that is a way to get my D&D centric group into something else. I'd be like, you already know how to roll a D20. Come on, guys. Now we just get, guns and grenades and you can hack shit.
Do you find it kind of weird, like, people have a hard time, like, switching from, like, the swords and that stuff and going to the guns and stuff, or going from the guns to the swords and stuff? Like, they just have a hard time switching with that.
I don't find it weird, and here's why. Because if you throw guns into your D&D, people have zero problems with it. Like anybody I've ever played D&D with, like if you're like, hey, you get this musket now, or you can have this blunderbuss, or you can have this gunpowder weapon, they like it. They do not buck it at all. At least what I've seen. Baron's shaking his head.
I don't.
But like I know. Well, okay, you don't like it, but like okay, but that's because you play different systems. Right? If I got these people who, yeah, you played different games, you played different systems. Like if you want guns in your game, you're going to get a system,
Okay.
right? But the people who are just D&D centric, if you tell them now you can have this musket or you can have this pistol or you can have this blunderbuss, they're like, hell yeah. And you just give it the stats of a crossbow, and then they're like, cool, now I get to like shoot shit. The problem they have, I honestly think, is like learning a new system, because a lot of these people who are D&D centric, they jumped into D&D because their friends were playing D&D and they heard it was cool, or they watched Critical Role and they were like, I want to be a part of this. They aren't people who played tabletop role-playing games before, and they probably had a little bit of trouble learning the D&D system. And they've also had, because when they were thinking about getting into D&D, they've also been told by 100 different people, oh, you can totally get D&D. It's the easiest system to learn. All you got to do is this.
And then when they have a hard time getting it, it hurts their confidence in a sense. And so then they
exactly. And then they look at this other system where people are like, no, this isn't this easiest system to learn. And they're like, I don't even want to try. Like, I don't want to try to learn this other system. And then, but you tell them you could throw guns into this system that you already know. I think that's going to be a whole lot easier of a sell than, hey, you had trouble with this easy system. Because everybody has trouble with any system if they're learning it for the first time. It's too many rules. I will say D&D 5th edition is an easy system to learn, but like that also comes from the point of view of somebody who's been playing D&D and tabletop role-playing games since 2006. You know, like when I picked up D&D Next is what they were calling it back when they were beta testing it and whatnot. When I picked up D&D Next, I was like, I had it in a day. I was like, yeah, this is super simple to learn, but I had also been playing for years. You get somebody who's never played before, they pick up this thing, they're like, oh, I'm told this was easy. Then they have some trouble, they get it eventually, and they go through it because it's fun and they want to have the fun, but now they don't want to go through that again, especially if it's going to be harder.
Yeah. What do you think it would take for Wizards of the Coast to bring back like a D&D modern or a D&D future?
Money.
Like in a realistic sense.
Okay.
They'd have to be convinced they can make money off of it.
There's going to be I'm going to discuss this. We plan on doing a Resurgence of D&D episode, and I'll discuss this in length during that episode, but I'll give you the footnotes version. Once upon a time, there was a comic called Penny Arcade, and they had a yearly expo. And one of the guys behind Penny Arcade loved D&D. The other guy behind Penny Arcade had never played D&D before. And he was like, the one guy was like, I'm going to teach you how to play D&D. And they were like, you know what? This will be an interesting experiment. Let's record it. And they started a podcast called Acquisitions Incorporated. And they got fucking Chris Perkins to Dungeon Master their shit. Because who knows D&D better than Chris Perkins, especially 4th edition, because that's what the edition was out when they decided to start this experiment. Fast forward a little bit, this thing becomes very popular. People are coming to Penny Arcade Expo just to watch these people play D&D live. Fast forward a little bit more, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition comes out. A very popular voice actor named Matt Mercer gets a bunch of his voice actor buddies together. They've been playing D&D for a while. They start to put it live on Twitch, YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
And that gets super popular. And now D&D all of a sudden blew up. So, if someone were to pick up that old D&D D20 modern system or D20 future system, and they started a podcast, or they started a YouTube stream or whatever, and that somehow got popular, and then someone more charismatic picked it up and did the same thing, Wizards is going to see, oh shit, there's something behind this, and they'll release a new supplement, they'll release a new edition. And not only that, but they'll get whatever that podcast is to be like they'll officially sponsor them, hand them all the shit, and be like, play this version now. That way, this is the version that everybody sees, and it'll sell like gangbusters.
Now, with the if this was to happen, would you like to see like D20 modern, D20 future go more of where it's at 5th edition, or would you want to see them keep kind of like that 3rd edition system that they had, and maybe move up to like a 3.5, 3.75, or like kind of revamp that game and keep it the same?
If it's going to be successful, it would have to be 5th edition. It wouldn't matter what I want to see. If it's going to be successful, because the people you're trying to get are the people who are already sold on 5th edition D&D.
I dig that idea. I like fifth edition. I think it would lend itself very well to a cyberpunk kind of campaign setting in a sense. You could very easily change out the spells for like a net runner and having the spells be like hacks like you do in the game. Um, it, it it would be a very easy kind of fix to do.
Right. I 100% agree with you. I mean, like they did it with 3.5. I mean, they basically just took that same system and turned it into D20 Modern, D20 Future. Why not do the same thing with 5th edition? They just have to be proven that it's going to make money.
Yeah. So
You're looking at me like you asked me a question.
No.
Okay, I was about to say you came back around to what I said, so I was like, okay.
Well, we've talked a whole lot about the tabletop game and what we'd like to see out of the future of the tabletop game. Obviously, we all think that D20 Future has a better chance of success than Cyberpunk, the tabletop role-playing game.
yeah,
Which is kind of crazy because, like, at least from what I've heard from the people who've been in this hobby for way longer than I have, is if you wanted to play a Cyberpunk-like game, you were playing Cyberpunk Shadowrun. Not a whole lot of people relied on D20 Future or D20 Modern. Is that true?
I think so. I think when people play D&D and they use the D&D system, that's what they expected. And I think it was hard for them to separate D&D from like D20 Modern and D20 Future. I think that when people wanted to play Shadowrun, they were more familiar with and more comfortable with that system. It felt more natural to them to use that system. And I think the same way. I think the same way with Cyberpunk. I think it just kind of came more down to like a psychological kind of like comfort, like this is home. This is home to me. Anything that's this system that's not D&D is going to be weird and foreign to me, and I'm not going to like it. So I think that's probably the reason why the D20 Future and the D20 Modern probably failed. Because if people were going to play that type of game, they were going to play Shadowrun because that's what they knew.
That makes a lot of sense. And like we just kind of have a different gaming climate nowadays. The people who are into tabletop gaming, or at least are just getting into tabletop gaming within the past few years, 5th edition feels like home to them. So if you can get them into 5th edition on a different setting, I think, that's what you want to do. So anyway, we talked a lot about the tabletop role-playing games. We've talked a lot about Cyberpunk, the video game. What about any books or movies? Is there anything there that you guys were really into that you'd like to cover?
With the cyberpunk genre, the Altered Carbon books are good. I like the show. The show's really good. Well, the first
That's on
season
Netflix,
of the
right?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. The first season of the show is good. The second season was not that good, and which is kind of a shame because the second season had Anthony Mackie in it. But like movie wise, the classics of like Akira, that was kind of like a classic and kind of like the start for a lot of people with the Cyberpunk and Blade Runner and like the Ghost in the Shell movies and just a lot of stuff like that. Johnny Mnemonic, another Keanu Reeves reference with this genre.
No, what's even weirder is how many movies he's been in with the name John or Johnny.
That is true. Oh my god. Maybe Keanu isn't his real name.
John.
John.
We never find out Neo's first name in the Matrix either, do we?
It's John.
Is it John? Like I remember the whole Mr. Anderson thing.
Yeah, I think it's. Oh, now you got me.
I don't think we ever hear it. In which case, I'm saying it's John.
We do.
Yeah.
Thomas.
That's it. What is it?
Thomas.
You know what?
Thomas Anderson.
I'm going to use my guild decree right now. That Keanu Reeves' character's name in The Matrix is John and not Thomas.
All right.
Okay, go for it. Guild decree.
Guild decree.
I was about to suggest that maybe it was his middle name, but if you're going to guild decree, that was exactly, hey, go for it.
That's his actual name. It's John Thomas.
John Thomas Anderson.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't read very many books when it comes to cyberpunk. Yeah,
Brett, I honestly think that you would like the Altered Carbon series. Like, I think Richard, I think you would like it too. It's a good mix of the cyberpunk kind of genre, but to me there is a bit of a fantasy feel to it, and I think that it's a very enjoyable series.
Yeah,
And
I'll check it out.
I mean, there's also the Philip K. Dick books. Like those are always been big influences on the cyberpunk genre and stuff like that.
Does anybody know if cyberpunk as a culture is still like going strong? Like, do we still have the people with like the kind of offshoot of goth with the tech wear and stuff like that? Is that still going strong? Is there still a cyberpunk scene out there?
I mean, I haven't really seen anything.
I mean,
think that there is.
Probably not within the past year, anyway.
I know that
I'm sure there is a culture, but
yeah,
I have seen like people have started to get implants, like actual working technology implanted into their skin, and so I would assume that the culture is still going and it's still getting more and probably getting more and more on the more popular side. Maybe I don't know. I don't keep up with fashion or trends or anything like that.
Hey, if you are listening to this cast and you are a member of the cyberpunk culture, give us an email, castersguild@gmail.com. Like, let us know what's going on with the cyberpunk scene right now. Because we just did an entire episode of a cyberpunk podcast, and none of us have any idea what the fuck's going on there. And we could probably use some education.
yeah, we're horribly behind.
Yeah. Not only that, I mean, like, you know, the crisis is still going on. We've all been locked up for a year. I mean, we're not going out and seeing what's going on with the scene anyway. So
we need to read new shit on the internet.
All right, Baron. I think I feel like we've kind of reached an end here. You want to kind of wrap us up?
Yep. Like furiously looking up like cyberpunk literature and shit. Try not to go into a tirade on the internet people again.
That sums it up perfectly.
Right. Yeah. Fuck you, internet people. Back to you, Rick. No. So yeah, if you're just now getting caught up into the cyberpunk frenzy that was brought to you by Cyberpunk 2077, just be aware, give the entire genre a chance. Just like you should probably give Cyberpunk 2077 another chance. It's really rich, it's diverse, and it's got a lot of commentary that is relevant to a lot of things that we as a people are going through right now. So get into it, enjoy yourself, and just be prepared to burn this entire bit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Casters Guild. Jason, if people like what you had to say today, can they find you anywhere on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at the Noble Order of Savages JM. There's also a Facebook group of the same name, the Noble Order of Savages, and we do a podcast that's called the Noble Order of Savages. You can find us on Spotify and iTunes.
We'll try to put all those links in the description down below. Email us, castersguild@gmail.com. If you've got anything to say about this episode or anything about future episodes, any suggestions or anything like that. Or like I said, I honestly do want to hear from somebody who's in the cyberpunk culture now and let us know what's going on with that scene. I am genuinely interested. Find us on all the socials. Find us on Twitch and YouTube. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Jumbo.